So here's a dense Brunescent nucleus. This will require deeper sculpting to be able to create the initial fracture. I like to also remove a little bit of the central nucleus, which, if enough of it is removed, I call it the crater divide and conquer, by making a little crater in the nucleus. But at least we want to get a wide enough area sculpted superiorly in the nucleus to be able to visualize and have room for the sleeve. But I have decided here I'm going to do more of a crater divide and conquer technique. We're going to emulsify this material anyway, so we can emulsify it by sculpting to be able to get into the depth of the lens without as much material to have to separate, and for better visualization. I reserve this for very, very dense nuclei. Another advantage to the crater divide and conquer technique is that when we break away segments and bring them into the center for phacoemulsification, they are not as large, and they will come into the central area with less resistance. This is Ozzel and IP. You can see we're not using a high vacuum. It's debulking the lens before divide and conquer. This is particularly helpful if you have a small pupil case and a very dense brunescent nucleus. I like sculpting. A lot of people argue against sculpting, just get at the fracturing. But I like it because the energy at the phacotip is directed against this dense nuclear material. And as I said, you can do these long cases and have very clear corneas the next day when the energy is dissipated against this dense nucleus by this extensive sculpting. Now we're going to try to start the fracturing. The little burst, not phacoing while we're pulling with the second instrument, just maintaining it with vacuum. So engaging, holding it with vacuum, and then try to get the separation. And as you watch this, you could say, well, we should have sculpted even a little deeper centrally to allow easier fracturing there. And you see that much centrally, you can sculpt even deeper centrally. So that's what I'm trying to do there now. This is what I mean by a smaller segment when the central nucleus has been debulked. It's easier to get these segments to come into the center after fracturing. Because the posterior plate of these lenses is quite dense. The whole nucleus is dense. Trying to extend the fracture a little more centrally. That's the challenge of a very dense lens, is to get that fracture to extend across the posterior pole of the lens. So it's this type of lens where the femtosecond laser will be most advantageous. But these lenses are dense right out to a very thin cortical layer. So even the femtosecond laser will have difficulty dicing this lens through that very dense posterior part of the nucleus. Notice the position of the second instrument when I'm emulsifying. As we remove the protective dense nucleus and we have the more exposed posterior capsule. It's amazing how dense that material can be right out to the posterior cortex. We think of adding more viscoelastic here to protect the cornea. Instrument could even be a little more forward to the phaco tip ideally, because that posterior capsule can just wrap around your second instrument.